Is this the first time you've done a podcast like this?
It is the first time.
So I'm taking your podcast virginity?
You are. And I'm getting interviewed by you. That's rough, dude.
To the point where I quit cooking for 3 months.
Jesus.
Did you know that?
No.
Did you know where I fucking worked for those 3 months?
Starbucks?
I don't think I've ever said this in public. I worked in...
I saw my dad in my head, and I was like, he would be so disappointed in you. He had cancer, and he's like, survival rate is so minimal. He's like, I don't give a fuck. He's like, I'm fighting 100% till the day I die.
Do you think that the trauma of your upbringing made you have a chip on your shoulder and something to prove? Well, guys, welcome to the fourth episode of the AOC podcast. So this is the A We Chef podcast. I'm Top. I am the managing partner at Mia and also the host for this podcast. And today we are joined with my dear friend, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Martin.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? How's it going, Top? Happy to be here, brother. This is awesome. Oh, yeah.
Are you nervous?
Of course I'm nervous.
Is this the first time you've done a podcast like this?
It is the first time.
So I'm taking your podcast virginity?
You are. And I'm getting interviewed by you. That's rough, dude. Oh, man. I think so.
I feel like... honestly, so just explaining the podcast very quickly to you.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this for myself.
Yep.
It's a self-meditation journey, but I'm also giving a platform to chefs to come out and, be interviewed essentially with a peer and a friend.
Yeah.
And maybe have some insights and give a sense of security as well, instead of having someone who doesn't know what the hell's going on.
Sure.
And also to add value to the viewers. So the way that I view the podcast is that it's for every chef or FME personnel who are on their journey as well.
Yeah.
The struggles we struggled with and talking about it, especially stuff that people don't really talk about. The dark side of the FME industry, as well as the pressure that comes with it.
Sure.
And, just being real. And the most important thing is, the people that come on, I will ask pretty uncomfortable questions at times.
I have no idea what you're actually going to ask me, so you're putting me on the spot, bro.
Look, at the end of the day,
I love it though.
I feel like the questions I will ask is up to you if you want to answer or not.
No
we
problem.
can always skip it and we can always edit it out.
No need
But
to.
more importantly, I feel like you will never get the chance to be asked and shared publicly anyways otherwise. So, and I think it adds value to people because for chefs, we keep to ourselves quite often.
Yep.
It could be a very dark hole.
Sure.
This career could be a very lonely road, even though we're surrounded by people, and our main job forte is, to make food, to make people happy.
Yep.
It could be quite lonely at times.
Yep.
And I know that you've had a hell of a journey yourself,
Sure.
through many ups and downs, and you've come out the other side, I think, happier than ever, more fulfilled than ever.
I think so.
Is that you? Yeah.
I mean, that's the goal, man.
Is that where you are right now? You think?
Life is good. I mean, life is never perfect. But I think that's part of the journey too, is when you start to realize that. It's like, I think, you could be, 10 years ago, I could have been having the worst day of my life. But I could be having that same day now. But I think with everything that's happened, I would just look at it with a different perspective. And it might actually be a great day with some hardships throughout. And you just try to come out on top, and you need to understand that. And I think that's especially true in the food and beverage industry, especially the kitchen. Pardon my language, but shit flies off the hook all the time. And that's just part of the game, right? Like, it's like, all right, what's wrong?
You don't have to pardon your language. You can swear as much as you want on here.
Shit happens. And it's like, well, our job essentially is to deal with the shit that happens. Because we make a plan, you have a menu, you have a recipe, you have a team. You plan for everything to go right. You plan for everything to taste a certain way. But then you have allergies come, people don't show up, something takes longer, someone burns something. How do you deal with that? You know what I mean? Like, you're going to give up and just go home and cry, or you're going to get through it. You know what I mean? You don't have time to think. It's like on the fly. That's life,
There's a saying I tell my team all the time, cry long time like a man.
Yeah.
I love it. Cry when you get home.
Sure. 100%.
Okay, so like I said, this is the fourth. To be honest, as I was saying in the 30p, we haven't launched a single one.
Yep.
It's not like a secret or anything, but it's just like I really don't know how the world will take this.
Yeah.
I might post it out and there'll be just 10 people viewing this, and that's okay.
Whatever.
And those 10 people will be my wife, my wife's family, my family, and me.
Yeah. I'll watch.
You'll watch.
I'm going to be into it. Yeah, it's going to be cool.
And it has been really nerve-wracking, but at the same time, I think it's needed. I think people, because obviously there is already podcasts about chefs.
Mm-hmm.
Already, there's a lot. There is a lot. But this side of the pond, there's some in the States. There's loads in the States.
Yeah.
There's some in Europe. But in Southeast Asia, obviously with the different blurs of cultures and the language barrier and everything, and the fact that it's a relatively new industry. It's young. Fine dining has only been around in Bangkok, like, I would say, 10, 15 years?
I mean, yeah, I mean, and it's really, I think it really started to take root a good 7 or 8 years ago, and only the recent 5, 6 years it's really starting to fly off the hand. Like
It really has. It really has. It really has. It's. I mean, some would say in an unsustained way for multiple reasons, but it's the
Definitely.
growth has been tremendous. So let's talk about you. So I
Sure,
would like
man.
to, introduce yourself to me as if we were meeting for the first time.
Cool.
Within like a minute, just very fast track. Where you were born to now.
Cool, man.
Drop it.
Mostly industry flip, yeah. Okay, so
No. It's
all right, cool.
It's the way that I view this podcast is not a chef podcast.
Yep.
It's a podcast about two human
It's a
beings
human
having a
being.
conversation who happens to be chefs.
Love it.
So it's two human beings who are going through the journey just as through as chefs.
Yep.
It's not a chefy podcast, even though it's in the name. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. So hey, brother, Andrew Martin from Canada, here in Bangkok for a good 8.5 years now. Mostly cooking Thai food. Now I'm working with Fun Fusion Japanese and some more stuff in the future. Adopted by a Japanese French Canadian family. So like Irish blood, Polish blood, raised by a French Canadian father and a Japanese mother. So definitely a bit of a mutt. There's a whole bunch of stuff I don't know, but I think that's just such a blessing, especially from my country. It's like fusion.
So when you say you're half Japanese, you were adopted by a Japanese.
Yeah. So exactly.
But
So
you were full Canadian.
folk, I don't even know.
you don't
Some
even know.
Polish, but I wouldn't say I'm Polish at all. Straight from the hospital, straight into my mother and my father's arms. So I grew up just as any other kid raised by an Asian mother and Asian mother's family would have. I was just learning to speak Japanese from my grandparents when I was a kid, eating with chopsticks. My favorite dessert growing up was mochi. My comfort soup was instead of chicken noodle soup with carrots and celery, which I love. My mom still made it, but was instant ramen with a boiled egg. The smells of stinky fermented radishes and miso, like that to me is comfort food. That is my childhood food. So I grew up with a very Asian, like foreign, like kind of, with a very Asian upbringing, just with mannerisms. And I was very connected with my grandparents who were Japanese, and my mother was the one who took care of
I
us.
didn't know you were adopted.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just, I mean, right now it's because this hasn't taken off. I'm only like inviting friends that I know.
Yeah.
And the great thing is you learn so much because there's like,
Sure.
We can dig a little deeper, and like I didn't know Garima was a journalist. Did you know that?
No,
Yeah.
I mean, as I'm learning here too. That's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah, she was a journalist for a very brief time. I
Very
had no idea.
Yeah.
So, okay. So was it I mean, was it confusing for you to grow up with an Asian mother, or not really?
I guess I always knew, and actually, in the
I mean, where did you live in Canada?
so Calgary and Vancouver,
Oh, okay.
which is like very Western. Calgary's like full of like cowboys. It's very conservative.
Was there a lot of Asian communities there, or not?
But
Really?
there definitely was Asian communities.
Okay.
But again, like just having an Asian mother, then the people, like she had a lot of Asian friends, of course,
Yeah,
and
of
Japanese
course.
friends, and that was something that you love your grandparents, right? You love your mom, especially as a boy, and so for me, that was I always knew I was adopted, but I was always very proud of that.
Was your mom full Japanese?
full-blooded Japanese? Yeah. But born in Canada, my grandparents are Japanese immigrant families.
Okay, so second generation.
Yeah, and but again, like I was. It's not like she tried to raise me as like a white kid, or like she just raised me as her own son. It's just like my father raised me as his son. You know what I mean? But it just happens to be that the mother's the one who takes care of the family, and the same ideology, same everything.
So what do your parents do?
Well, my father passed away when I was a teenager, sadly, but just
sorry to hear that.
amazing man, just super cool, small town guy. His father was a cheesemaker from a town of less than 500 people. He left home when he was 13. He was a big sports guy, so I think that definitely influenced me a lot as a kid. We did a lot of outdoor activities, and my mom's family, my grandpa, his family was a commercial fisherman, loved to fish. So my dad's family, farm town, farming community, cheesemakers. My mother's family, my grandma's a nurse, but again, my grandpa, like a lot of fishing, heavy influence, a lot of outdoor activities, and I think that really sculpted the way that I ate, and that I, my lifestyle.
I mean, yeah. I mean, anyone following Andrew's IG is all fishing.
Absolutely.
All day, every day.
Mostly.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. No, I always I used to love fishing. And when I say used to, it's because I feel like I haven't done it in so long. I just, yeah, it was, I've lived on an island all my life.
Yeah.
Until I was like 21.
That's amazing, isn't it? And then you moved to another island just to.
No, but that's what I mean. It was PP, Phuket, and then Isle of Wight, which is also an island.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did you end up in so what happened? So when did you start? When did your culinary career start?
So all that being said, like as proud as I was, like I had a really rough childhood.
Yeah.
And that was just like from my own that was all, like I was the catalyst to that, you know what I mean? That was
When you say rough, well, what do you mean by rough?
Well, so yeah, I was running away from home a lot when I was like a kid, and I guess I was always confused and stuff, and I guess I was just angry, and I don't even know why. I guess a lot of it was just like not knowing myself, and you could say that as being overly sensitive. As much as I love my mom and my dad, maybe I was like looking for attention, and maybe I felt like I didn't belong. It was probably a lot of deep-rooted stuff, and then I got into like a lot of like drugs and bad stuff when I was a teenager. I dropped out of school a few times, got kicked out of school a few times. Just ridiculous. Got in a lot of trouble, got arrested, went back to school, graduated. And then after my father passed away that year, I went back to school. I wanted to really make him proud. And he passed away. And so I went really astray after high school, and just brutal. Just brutal, so disappointing. Like if I look back on myself, it's like I should have been like much better for my family and for my mom. But I was like, I have to leave. And so I left Calgary officially, and I drove out to Vancouver with about $500 in my pocket. And I called some friends, and I was like, yo, boys, I'm struggling. They're like, it's okay, come stay with us, sleep on the couch. That's exactly what I did. I just cleaned up, a couple beers here and there, but nothing hard. And skateboarded, snowboarded, and I started working as a dishwasher for 3 days a week to make enough money to pay for rent, which was really cheap back then, and to get enough gas or money to eat fish and chips, buy a little bit of pot, and go snowboarding. So one day, one of the deep fryer cooks didn't show up, and they're like, Andrew, like, go cook. And I was like,
window of opportunity.
I was like, yeah, whatever, window of opportunity. But it was this restaurant, and it was like, like burgers and like pre-frozen stuff. It was super cool. But they're like, okay, Andrew, go here. Like timers for the food, right? Like 4 minutes for chicken. And we had this thing called like dipping chicken, which was chicken
You
fingers.
guys had a timer for the fries?
Yeah, man, it was amazing. It was like it was like a higher end like McDonald's, like a chain restaurant group, right?
Fucking hell.
It's like microwave risottos and stuff. Like whatever. I didn't know any better. I wasn't trying to be a cook, but I was like, this is cool. But I always loved food, and just doing like frozen chicken fingers. And at the end of the night, they're like, 400 people later, they're like, oh, you're really good at this. Do you want to be a cook? And I was like, guess so. They're like, do you want to be full time? I was like, fuck, not really. But I was like, I need a job, So I started getting really good at it, and I liked it. And I was doing like all these burgers and flipping on the spatula. And my roommate at the time, Corey, his girlfriend was working at this really like one of the nicest restaurants in Vancouver, and she's like, you should go do a trial there. And I was like, okay, like sure. She's like, you might really like it, like you're super full of energy and creative and stuff. And I was always like fucking around at home, and she's like, go. You should do a stage. I was like, what's a stage? And she's like, oh, like you go work for free. And I was like, what? Excuse me.
Excuse me.
And so, yeah, they put me in this like dungeon in the back, and they're like, all right, we want you to like take a mandolin and slice garlic, fried garlic chips, and like milk, like put it in milk and like tomatoes, and like, I cut the tips of my fingers off by the end of it. I was like, this is like brutal. It's like, why am I not getting paid for this? I'm already here for like 10 hours, So then we get into service, and like they start doing like mule frites, like really cool, like 4 different, I love mussels. And I was like, that's amazing. And I remember they did this, what really caught me though, they did this bison carpaccio. And so it was like a frozen bison loin, and you like shave it. And I actually was the one to like lay it on the plate. and then you like glazed it with this really nice sauce, and there was cherries and pine nuts, fried garlic, you know, the pepper cracker on the plate. And I was like, whoa, like this is food. I was like, this is amazing. And I was like super into it. And they're like, all right, like, do you want a job? And I was like, sure. They're like, we'll pay you minimum wage for 8 hours a day. Everything else is free. And I was like, all right, it sounds brutal. But like nowadays, I'm like, oh, like what a cool opportunity, right? And that's what led me here with a shitload of bumps in the roads, man. Yeah, but that's how it all started. Yeah.
I mean, I like you, I stumbled into the career as well. And I think we have a lot of chefs are very few chefs I feel start off, well, the lucky ones anyway. I feel like they know, you know. I feel like, you know, Garima didn't plan out to be a chef either.
Yeah, like journalist, Asian.
Yeah, and so and though, okay, my point was like all the chefs that stumble in this industry, I always feel like they have a definitive moment, and it's always seeing food in any way. Like every time someone asks me like, oh, you know, you're Thai, you eat food, and you must have had like a connection to it from a chef's perspective. I'm like, that's not true at all.
Yeah.
I did not see food as any other thing than like fuel.
Yeah.
Enjoyment of fuel.
Sure.
Until yeah, for me it was for the dish, it was for me it was the mashed potatoes and chicken wing with like jujurati,
Which would have been so different than what you saw here in Thailand growing up.
oh my god, bro, like, and the chicken wasn't even like it was just the roasted mid wing that they put in the sauce.
Oh,
and,
right on.
you know, when you I mean everyone in London is when you're on the sauce section and you're hungry, you roast the protein and then you just pick a few pieces out.
Oh, hell
I think
yeah.
I think the sous chef gave it to one of my friends, Hattie, because he was flirting with her, and then she ended up giving it to me. She was the one who got me the job as a waiter in the hotel that I worked at.
Oh, wow.
But it was that, like, literally a few spoons of mash, so much butter, a mid chicken wing roasted for the jus, and then the sauce. That was what blew my mind.
Wow. Wow.
And also the baguette. There was another incident where it was first time I had proper bread. Was also a life-changing moment for
Oh,
me.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
So after you worked there,
Yep.
when did you come to Asia then?
So, I mean, like I worked there for a little bit, and then I worked at a slew of other restaurants around Canada. But I really realized how much I love food. Like I always did. Like when I was a kid, I would like make stir fries at home, you know, and like we'd always have like leftover rice. Like we'd have rice every single night for dinner. Then no matter what, we order pizza, my mom's like, no, eat until the rice is ready. You know what I mean? So I would always like to cook at home, and I guess that's kind of what I always liked it. So I was a bit of like maybe a bit of a headache for my chefs, probably like, do you want to try this? Like, you know what I mean? You know, I was one of those guys. But you know,
I know exactly what you mean.
You know, like I see them all the time too, and I'm like, yeah, I get it. Don't worry, we're on the same boat. But I was that guy. So I ended up working my way up, and I had a girlfriend who watched
Did you struggle at the beginning?
Sure, of course I did, but then I think I ended up having a chef who was also one of those guys. So he took me under his wing, you know what I mean? And I worked my ass off. I was like lifting up stock pots by myself. They're like, let me help you. I was like, no, I'll do it, you know.
But let me focus on the beginnings.
Sure.
Because like it's something that I really, really want to dig into.
Sure.
Do you think that the trauma of your upbringing made you have a chip on your shoulder and something to prove as a chef?
100%.
It was the first time you felt like you were a part of a community?
Yes. And everybody's a bit of a badass back then.
Yeah.
You know, this was still kind of with that.
Yeah.
You know, like burns, whatever. Like, sure, I don't care. Got to go to too busy to go to the washroom.
Yeah.
Like, no problem.
Yeah.
100%. Like, I cut my finger open, give me some tape.
What was the moment that you felt like you belonged? Was there something that happened? Was there?
I had this one chef, Chef Josh Wolf, just a badass guy. I loved him, and he's a pretty. I'll show you a picture of him later. He's a pretty imposing guy, and he was a great guy. And he had this big, busy, open kitchen, and he would let you know when something was wrong. You know, and but I was again. I guess I always just felt like I had something to prove. So it's just I was working. I'd be out with my friends, maybe take something inappropriate, sleep for like an hour. They call me, Andrew, or cook didn't show up. Can you come today? Be like, sure, like I'm on it, you know. But I remember, I think like I said, like I would, you get like a big pot of stock. It's full of bones. You get your friends to help you lift it off. You carry it, and I'd be like, people are like, oh, will someone help me? And I'd be like, move, I'll do it. And I just carry it by myself and do all that stuff. And I remember Josh would be like, oh, like Drew, like the Terminator, like just a machine, And I'm like, yeah, like let's fucking go. And he kind of took seriously. The one day I was kind of playing around. I had some like leftover salmon, sake salmon, and I made this dish. I was just a commie, and I put it on the plate, and it was like with almost like a tempura sauce kind of thing. So still close to my Japanese roots, and I think I had some pea shoots. And he's like, I was like showing it. He's like, oh, like what is that? Like just he like kind of says like, what are you doing? I was like, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, no, like let me try. And he's like, this is cool. Like, and he tried. He's like, let's put it on the menu as a special. And I was like, no fucking way, right? And then my sous chef Mike and Mark Singson, and they all kind of took me under their wing, and I worked with them on some other projects. But that's when I was like, I kind of belong here. I was like, I'm actually good at something, which I guess I never really felt like I was ever good at anything before. And that's why I was like, wow, like I can do this. Like I belong here. And Josh loved the guy, just that was probably like.
Did you become close?
That was pardon me.
Did you become close after?
Oh yeah, that was like a defining moment in my career, though. Yeah, I remember I opened another restaurant with him later, like 5-6 years down the line, and he like bought me like this really expensive fishing rod. He's like, "What are you doing on your day off?" He's like, "It doesn't matter. We're going fishing." Gives me like a 20,000 baht fly fishing rod. I was like, man, he was just a great guy. Yeah.
It's funny, like I feel like when in the kitchen, anyways, when someone was your boss. Even if you become close, I always see my closest friends as still boss.
Yeah, I mean, Chef Josh. He's. I'm never gonna call him Josh. He's Chef.
Yeah.
Chef Mikey is my chef.
Ironically, the first few chefs I worked with, they never allowed me to call them chef.
I have.
So my Josh was Carlos. Carlos was the one who took me under his wing.
Yeah.
I was always, I think I said it in the first episode. I was literally the world's worst fucking commie. I was,
I think
without a doubt, the world's worst. I would come late. I would like, I don't know. I had this arrogant aura of I was too good to take small jobs seriously, even though I was a fucking commie and I knew nothing. So, and I would go into service with like less portions than I should prepare for. And in hindsight, yes, the management at the first restaurant should have, but it was always during low season. So during the winter time, you never know whether you're going to be busy or not.
Sure.
And I was like almost too good to prep. And the amount of times I've been in the shits because I was just too arrogant to do the simple basic stuff.
Yeah.
And I think Carlos, like, I think he took me outside nicely and asked me if I wanted to keep doing this, if I was serious about it, like at least 2 or 3, 4 times. And I know that most would have just stopped. But yeah, even though we've become really, really close, and I owe him a lot, he, at the end of the day, he was always the first one to open the door, where most people would have given up. I would have given up on myself, without a shadow of a doubt. Like the thing was, it was like, looking back on it now, the mistakes I made were like, I didn't care.
Yeah.
But it was just like I had this like aura of like I was too good to do shit jobs.
I got it.
Yeah. Like, oh, you want me to pre-blanch the pasta? I'll do that to order, motherfuckers.
Yo, I'm the same. I'm just dude.
Like,
I'm the same.
Why do I put myself through that? Just like
because it's better quality if you cook it to order.
And that's the lie we tell ourselves. Just like I'm just good to pre-cook pasta.
Yeah, sure, 100%.
And but yeah, and even though we became close, and even though he, I haven't worked under him in like so long. Every time I see him, I still, there's always that, and I don't know, I feel like that's so rare, and I think that's, I've never done anything else, but I definitely don't think that people in the office see their boss as their boss. If they get promoted above them forever, like that's like mentorship is like, it's really, really, it's the bond that stays with you forever.
Well, I think, and it kind of goes back to what you said at the beginning. Like it's a bit of a, talking about the industry, the ups and downs. Like there's so many downs. We don't get paid a lot. Like I said, he gave me that fishing rod. I think I actually had to pay him back for it. It doesn't matter. But like the fact that he went on and bought it with his own money, it's like the same amount of my money. Like I got paid in 2 weeks. You know what I mean? And it's like there's so many. It's such a hard job, and it's like you're so emotional through all of it that like those guys that like push you to be better. It's like you said, he takes you outside. Like, are you serious about this? But the thing is, like, he obviously cared about you and saw that you had talent.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if he didn't, he wouldn't have done that. He would have been like, fuck this guy. Like, get out of here.
I wouldn't say talent, but
Or
it was just
that you were something. But I mean, don't be. I know you don't want to talk yourself up, but I would tell you that you're a talented chef, and he obviously saw that you were a good guy and worth talking to. Right?
To be honest, back then,
So you build a bond.
I was in many ways I was his first protege in terms of like I was the first chef that, because obviously when he moved to the Isle of Wight, he had a lot of other chefs that he brought up.
Yeah.
But I was like the clean slate. I was the first one that was a blank piece of paper that he had under him.
Oh, that's cool, eh?
That was like his own, because he obviously worked in Roussillon, which is a 1 Michelin star restaurant, super well respected with Alexis and Gerard.
Right.
He was a sous chef there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he taught people from scratch.
Yeah.
But the Isle of Wight in the Prairie Bay was like his first command. It's like it was his own.
Which is a big deal for him too. So
yeah. So I was and I think I was the first one he took under his wing from scratch. I had no prior experience.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I did. I actually never realized that until we are talking right now.
That's cool.
I'll send this clip.
You should. You should.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He's in the Philippines now.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, he's Spanish in the Philippines. You know, and yeah, he's I would love to get him on the podcast, but he's quite shy.
Maybe one day.
Yeah, maybe one day. Who knows?
That'd be cool.
No, this is why I want to do this. You know, like if it was a journalist sitting right here, right now, asking you these questions, you wouldn't give the same answer.
No, I mean, I'm just talking to you like a friend right now, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think we understand each other. I'm not trying to impress anybody. I never try to impress anybody anyways, but like, I don't have like an agenda on how to like appear. Yeah. I know you're doing this for you. And if it, regardless of, like you said, 10 people watch it or 100 people watch it or 1 million people watch it, I mean, this is the industry we can be, that we're in. It's better to be real and put ourselves on.
Yeah,
it's like putting your food on the bit. You put yourself out there, you know?
Of course. I mean, it was, if I'm being honest, I mean, the reason this started was, and I really don't talk about this a lot in the podcast at all, because I don't want it to be the reasoning for it to be a story. But it is my truth, and it would be a disservice.
Yeah.
Chris Menning asked me to come on the podcast under Gastronomical Lifestyle ages ago, you know, and for the reason you just said, I've always said no. I said that I was a bit too busy. I was a bit scared to put myself out there. I wasn't sure how the world would react. You know, a fine dining chef who has a star is now doing a podcast and content about other chefs. And, you know, and I was always swinging and swaying about who needs it, who needs you know, there is already enough. Mm-hmm. And then I think someone said it to me very clearly. She's like, it might have been Michelle. I can't remember who it was. It was like, look, it's like a TV show. There's already 1 million of them out there. It doesn't stop new people making new TV shows.
True, bro. Restaurants, TV. Yeah, no, I love that. It's great.
And you know, and as you know, Chris passed away, very sadly.
I didn't know him that well, but it's very sad.
Oh yeah. And yeah, it was the catalyst to push me to do it, because he was a passionate storyteller. I mean, what he's done with Gastronomical Lifestyle has been truly inspiring. Mm-hmm. And he did a few interviews, but he was always said, you know, because he did the Barback podcast, and he was saying that he wanted to do one with chefs for chefs, and he asked me to be the host on his.
Oh wow!
Yeah, because obviously when you have a bar, when you have someone from the bar asking a barback, we have someone from the bar asking bar people questions, it's more relatable. And I think he kind of like struggled with a few, because he did a few chef ones, and he felt it was a bit generic.
I believe that. I get that.
Yeah, which is obviously is very true. Like the stuff I'm asking you now, I'm only been able to ask because we've all been on the same, not the same, but like, you know, replicate journey at points.
Same, but different.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Same struggles as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so the kitchen was where it's
where I thrived.
Yeah.
It's also
But what was your? Did you obviously? I always talk about self-doubt. Did you ever have self-doubt in the beginning?
No, because I was just some arrogant little punk. But like, just like you know what I mean? Like, I'll carry it myself. I'll do this. I'll do that. Like, get out of my way. Let me fix it. You know, probably pissed a few people off, I'm sure.
I had loads of self-doubt. I think for the first 6 months, I really didn't think I could do it. I really, really genuinely believe, like, I was like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? And unlike you, the worst thing for me, I feel like, is that I had an out. Like, you were saying that it was your job, you had to do it,
Yeah.
and it was like you had nothing else to do. Me, the worst, and this made it torturous. I was one phone call away from my parents' house.
Yeah.
The restaurant was literally only like a 20-kilometer drive,
Right.
and there was my bed, there was a comfort of my home,
Yeah.
and there was opportunities I could have had in Thailand, and
Right.
it was just one phone call away. And for me to say no to that for so long, even with self-doubt, is something that I honestly, I didn't think I would pull through. I didn't think I would see through.
You made it. And here we are.
And here we are.
But no, it's, but I think we all have our own self-doubt. I'd say that like my cocky arrogance was just me. It was like a mask for my self-doubt.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask you next.
It's just like, man, I'm an emotional guy. Like I like I said, man, like I could get into it, but I've done some bad stuff, but not because I'm a bad person, and I've made like a lot of dumb mistakes, but just because I guess I just trying to put on a facade, like I'm tougher than I actually am, or like I'm not this person. I'm a strong person. I'm not weak, like, but I guess deep down I was just like agony inside, but
a bit broken.
And that's it. And I feel like I've actually been broken, like just for like a huge part of my life. And it's not for like a lack of love or for a beautiful home and a beautiful family. Like I love my mom. They're such good parents, such beautiful experiences growing up too. But I think it's just a lot of self-sabotage and not understanding what was going on inside of me. And I think, but that's the fun thing about the kitchen. There's nothing else to do. Like you're in there, and it's like, man, like let's get ready. Let's mise en place. Let's do service. Like I got no other time to focus on anything else. And this is one thing that I'm good at, and it's one thing, like I'm super ADD, just like you. But once I'm in the kitchen, like once it's game on, it's like this is my job. This is what I'm here to do today. And that's why, like, I will never change my job. Of course, I had like doubt throughout my career, but I'm at the point now where I'm like, I would never do anything else. I love this job so much. I love this career.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
But I've done some dumb shit, man. Like, I was in a relationship back when so another like huge catalyst in my career. I was at this restaurant. And there's like no Michelin stars in Canada. You know what I mean? Like when I started cooking, like I didn't even know what a Michelin star was.
Now, right?
There is now.
Yeah.
And actually I said Chef Mikey, who was my sous chef with Josh Wolf, we opened up a restaurant. He actually got the first Michelin star ever announced in Canada a couple of years ago. I was super excited.
How did that make you feel?
I was so happy to see it.
How did that make? I can just imagine, a history making like that.
It was.
Yeah.
It was super cool to watch him get on stage. That was like, I don't usually watch those things, but it was like Vancouver, Canada, like where I started my career. So I was like curious, and to hear like Anna Lena, like Mikey Robbins, like first, I was like, that is so cool. When I was back there, like we ate together, like had a beautiful meal, super, super happy. But it was like really exciting, right? But especially because like we all just kind of came up like just all these kids, right? Like he was my executive sous chef, and then my chef, and he was like 25. I was like 22 or something like that. And it's just so cool to see him like take that path. Anna and Lena, beautiful restaurant. His two grandparents, right? Like his two grandmas, Anna and Lena, and he turned that into his restaurant. So that's cool. But like, he was a great chef, and I always went through it. But he also gave me a hard time. He's like, Andrew, he's like, a lot of people just stay cooks. I don't even know how we got here. But he's like, I remember I was just to do dumb shit. And he's like, Andrew, like, do you want to be a chef or do you want to be a cook? Because he's like, look out there. He's like, there's a lot of people who are just cooks. He's like, do you want to be a chef? And he's like, because you're going to have to pick your shit up if you want to be a chef one day. And I was like, oh. And that always kind of stuck in the back of my head. Then I got this new job after that at this other restaurant again. But like, and when I figured out what Michelin stars were, but I'd never eaten at a Michelin star restaurant. But then there was my chef who was like working at 3 Michelin stars as like chef de cuisines and stuff in Europe. And he's from Europe. And my chef Frank in Canada, and he was running like arguably like the best restaurant in Canada at the time, like one of, and I kept going in there to apply, and I think I dropped off the resume 5 times, and eventually like, all right, come in for an interview, got to come in for a stage. I knew the drill at that point, and they gave me a job actually, and so I started as a commie, and. Or like a commie 3, and I worked my way up, and I'd been talking about becoming a chef de partie, but I was in this relationship, and we broke up, and I went out that night, and I did a lot more than drink, I'll put it that way. And it's just shitty, just a right shit show. And I slept for like maybe an hour, and I went to work the next day, and I just showed up like a scumbag, and I was just didn't know what I was doing. I remember it. And Spencer, love you, Spencer. I saw him recently. He was my chef de cuisine, executive sous chef there. And Frank wasn't there that day. But, we had like the open kitchen here, and this was like the dining room, and we had like the prep kitchen and back area, so we'd all go there in the morning and do a mise en place and get ready for dinner. I think I showed up at like 11:30, like half an hour before I was supposed to start, and at 12, and everyone else showed up. So we're all standing around doing our mise en place here, cutting. People are here, and he just looks at me and he's like, I can't remember what I did, but he just looks at me in front of me. He's like, Andrew, like, get the fuck out of here. And I was like, he's like, you're a fucking mess, Like, I'm pretty sure he's like dropping the F-bomb, He's like, you're acting like an asshole. This is totally unprofessional. Everybody just here to do your job. He's like, go home now. He's like, no talk. He's like, leave. And I was like, and I went home with like head hanging, you know what I mean? And I was like, shit. And so I went back, and he's like, come back tomorrow. He sent me a message. So we'll talk tomorrow. So I get back there the next day, and it's like, Frank wants to talk to you. So I go to the dining room, and Frank's at the bar. And he's like, what happened? And I was just like, look, man, it was like fucked up. And I was like, you can fire me if you want to. I was like, I'll resign. Like, I don't even care. Like, I was like, up to you. Like, I wouldn't put up a struggle. But I was like, this would happen. And I told him exactly what I did. I told him all the things that I had done. And I was like, that's why I was like that yesterday. And I was like, I'm sorry. I was like, I'll tell you it'll never happen again. But I was like, if you want to let me go, you let me go. That's cool. I'll take it like a man. It's my own mess. And he looks at me and he's like, I'll tell you what. He's like, you got to go back in the kitchen and apologize to everybody. And he's like, if you want to keep working here, you're going back to call me 3. He's like, either walk out the door or call me 3. And I was like, call me 3. So I cleaned up my act, and I was like, I think 3 months later, I became chef de partie, which was really cool. So a lot of love for them, and worked my way up through that kitchen, super busy, cooking everything to order. We have like a live shellfish, someone orders like anything, you kill it to order. So very live prawns, like from the ocean. So very, very exact, very precise, And then I kept working my way up there, and it was a great thing. And that got me good. And then I came to Thailand eventually. That's a different story, but man, I've had so many ups and downs, and a lot of substance abuse throughout my life. And when I got out here, I think the drinking really took charge at one point, and then it really took. I don't know if you saw me at my worst when I was quite big.
I knew you were quite big, and I knew that you did like a drink. I didn't know that. I didn't know how bad it was behind the facade, as you say.
I've always, I started smoking when I was 11. And then it just kind of carried on, but I was always kind of active, so I think it kind of stayed even. I quit smoking and drinking a few times, one of them which was when the incident happened after I had the relationship tumble for a few months, and then I came back here, but then it just really took charge out here, and I got into this really bad state, and I was eating shit food all the time. It was like burgers, only fried pork belly, only fried eggs, 6 beers a night, like whiskey every night. And I just went from being around 85 kg up to 117 kg, 2 packs of cigarettes a day.
2 a day?
More sometimes, but minimum 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And it was brutal, man. And I went to the hospital here, I had a health scare, and they're like, you're on the verge of a few things. And I was miserable. I was so disappointed in myself with how my career was. It was just up and down. And I was just like, you came all the way out here and you had a little bit of success. At least you kind of proved something to yourself. You took a risk out here. You came out here with a backpack and like $1,000, and you've been doing okay. And then you just crumbled. And I think you did that to yourself. And I looked myself in the mirror, and he's like, you've almost got this and you've almost got this. I thought I had cancer originally. And they had to do like a test and everything. But he's like, choice is yours, man. He's like, keep living like this, and no guarantees, but more than likely you're going to be on medication for this and for this and for this within 6 months. And once you do that, there's no going back. And I saw my dad in my head, and I was like, he would be so disappointed in you. And again, it's one of the strongest people I knew. Like, he had cancer, and he's like, I'm gonna beat it. He's like, or they're like, you have like a 97% chance of death. Like the survival rate is so minimal. He's He's like, I don't give a fuck. He's like, I'm fighting 100% till the day I die. And so he's a really strong man, right? He's a professional hockey player for a couple of years. That's how he put himself through school. And I was just so disappointed. So I walked out that hospital, and usually I've been in the ICU before for different reasons, and which wasn't this time. But I would have walked out and lit a cigarette and comfort food. Oh, I deserve this. I was in the hospital. I'm gonna get some pork belly or something. And I was like, fuck this, dude. And I threw my cigarettes away. I was like, I'm done. And I was like, I'm gonna clean myself up, cold turkey. I was like, done everything. I'm done everything. And so I threw my cigarettes away, and I was like, all right, Andrew, what's your next job? I was like, you got to take care of yourself. So I was like, I went to a gym, and that's how I met June. You know June.
Yeah. I know June.
And I went there, and I said, I need some help. And they're like, what do you want? And I was like, you know what? And I knew it. I was like, I want to work out. I want to get in shape. And they're like, okay, what do you want to do? I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I was like, I'm a fucking mess. And they're like, what do you do? I'm like, I just quit smoking like an hour ago. I'm not going to drink anymore. I swear to God. And I was like, I need help with my diet. And they're like, this is serious. Cheers, brother.
Product play. This is not a sponsored, by the way. We're just having coffee.
It's delicious coffee.
Yeah, that's good. That hits the right spot. Yeah, I love, to be honest, I know that they're a super famous brand.
Yeah.
But the logo was, I think I saw the logo like 6-7 years ago in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And that's what always struck me. Because
really?
I didn't, and when I first knew this brand, I didn't drink, I only started drinking coffee like 2 years ago. I never had coffee before that. I was always a tea guy. Very British, tea, Earl Grey, even though most people say lemon, fuck that. Earl Grey with milk and sugar. And if not, my grandmother's favorite, Yorkshire tea, that was my go-to.
Oh, wow.
PG, if I'm feeling, on the budget, but those two were my, so I only started drinking coffee when I went on my own weight journey.
Wow.
But the logo is what, because you obviously know, I'm always talking about chasing the 1%, right? Yeah. I'm like obsessed with it. And it's like a motto I have in life. And it's just so easy to apply to,
Yes.
And the thing that I love about it is like, when you have these goals in life, when you have these big dreams, aspirations, it's so overwhelming. Mm-hmm. It's so overwhelming. And the thing that I feel like a lot of people, chefs or not chefs, that they don't get the happiness and fulfillment that they deserve, is because I feel like they make the tan too daunting for themselves. And I feel like if you break it up and just focus on one thing you do today, one win, mental win, spiritual win, physical win today, you're already on the path. And time, whether it's time can either be your best friend or your worst enemy. And you choose the choices you make
100%.
Align with those things.
That's why I like to go to the gym in the morning.
Yeah, it's already a win.
It's already a win. You start the day with a win, no matter how tired you are.
So going back to when you left the ICU that day.
Yeah, when I left the hospital that day, yeah.
And then you went to see Jordan.
Yeah, so threw my cigarettes away. I was made up my mind. I was like, I'm done. I was like, I'm sick of this. I was like, you're wasting everything you have. You're just a waste of life right now, and you're not happy clearly. So I went to go see them, and I was like, I looked at the prices for the PT, and I was like, wow, this isn't cheap. But I was like, you know what? I was like, the amount of money that I've spent on things that are not good for me and that have led me here is still.
I think 2 packs of cigarettes would be the same price as a PT.
About that per month, then everything else. And I was like, I'm into it. So I was just like, let's do a trial. And I was like, all right. And we did it. And I was like, all right, I'm doing 3 days a week with you starting now. And they're like, that's a little bit aggressive to start. And I was like, no. I was like, this is how we're doing it. I'm making up my mind. And they're like, Jesus.
You're like,
and I was like,
all in or nothing.
And I talked to the guy, and he's like, do you know what fasting is? And I was like, I have no idea. And so that was it. And that day I went home, and
you started fasting? You started fasting?
Started fasting. And after the workout, I was like, oh, the adrenaline. I was like, I don't want to smoke. And I love running too. And so I used to hate running. I hated running. And I realized after the gym that I didn't want to smoke. But then 4 or 5 hours later, I was like, shit, I want to have a fucking cigarette, So it's like, I need to do something. I go outside for a run, but I was so out of it. I was like running for like 200 meters, like, I'm going to die. But then I was like, but I don't want to smoke. So that like turned into like a supplemental addiction. But then, you know, within like a month, I lost like 5 kg. You know, it goes fast, right? And then I just kept going and going and going. I went from 117 down to 82 in about a year. Quicker than that, actually. But then within a year, I was like super fit. And then a year and a half later, I was just enjoying life. I was waking up at 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock every morning, going to the gym, going to the shower, going and buying my whole foods, my vegetable-based diet, still enjoying all my Thai food, but responsibly. Still eating Thai food every day. But instead of having like pad grapao mugrab with 2 kai dao every day, I'd have like, you know, pad grapao kind of sap. And
that's my go-to right now.
I'd have those. I'd still have that once a week, but I would just have to be like a little more strategic on how we eat my Thai food, which is my favorite food in the world. And but I got into shape, man, and I went back to the hospital, and they did the full comprehensive blood test at Samita Veg. You know, it's a great hospital. It really is. I just went in. I was curious how my body is doing, and they had all the numbers from the year before when I went in and I was out of shape. And the doctor's like, he's like, can I talk to you? And I was like worried, and he's like, this is amazing. He's like, you're a completely different person. He's like, anything, and he's like, all these ailments that you were facing before, they're gone. You have nothing to worry about whatsoever. He's like, now you have your muscle ratio. He's like, this is like athletic level, like this, and I was so proud of that. And that was good.
More than any career achievement.
Just beautiful. And I could see how happy my mom was, you know. And I put her through so much hell as a teenager. I can't even believe it. And then as a young adult, I think she was always worried about me. But I think she was just so happy that I finally took it upon myself. You can't have people force you. You have to do it yourself. But I felt great, and I was excited to like live, I was just happy, man. And I was just genuinely happy. It was a great feeling. I'll never go back because I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean I will say that a lot of people like myself, we needed to push, and people. I feel like, you know, the model that I have for viewers who are looking at this and people who are struggling, like we both have.
Yeah.
You know, you can choose. You either, like Andrew, you know, let life choose for you, or you choose yourself. And the saying goes, you know, what you're not changing, you're choosing. And that is so fucking true.
100%.
It's so fucking true. And not only that, like the worst part about it though is like you have to be in enough pain for you to be unable to bear the pain for the change, which is sad. It's almost like you have to cross the line to know where it is.
Yeah.
You know, and like when you like, even now, I still feel like you talk down to yourself when you think about your past. But I feel like those pasts, they are what made you to you who you are today. And they were made. It's like, for example, if you didn't get that sick, you would have not made this change,
100%.
and you would have never been this healthy.
One of the best things that happened to me. It was terrible, but it was great.
It's terrible, but it's great.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I feel like this is why when there's so many people talk about life and adversity and stuff, it's like the worse your adversity is, it's almost like a blessing.
100%.
Like suffering is the only real life teacher. And I know that I'm not trying to simplify very complex complications, and everyone's life is different, and some people don't have a choice and stuff on the matter, and I totally understand that. But like every adversity you come across in life, and there will be many, whether it's a chefing or not chefing, just like in life in general, it's a choice. You know, you can either make the most of what you have and keep going forward, keep fighting, and then, you know, just try your best, but genuinely try your best. Don't say like you're trying your best and then not
100%
for it.
I think that's the most important thing. That's a huge, going back what you just said, because, and this is something that I firmly believe in now. You know, after that whole ordeal that I told you about, we all went through COVID together, and especially in our industry, is absolutely brutal. And
I must say, I know that everyone has a COVID story, but Michelle and I, we had the best time during COVID.
I love your guys' COVID story. You came out beautiful.
It was the first time
in such good shape. You came out in a brutal. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. It was the first time in our lives that I think we didn't work.
Yeah.
And it was the first, like, I watched I played Dota. I haven't played Dota in like 12 years, and I played it from night to
Right.
day.
Right.
It was fucking amazing. And I love video game, but I can't play them because I don't have time, you know?
Yes.
So, and I realized how shit I was at Dota. And the more shit I was at Dota, the more I wanted to play it. Because
Sure.
I have this obsession of like, I'm so bad at something, it makes me wanna do it even more.
Yeah.
And I reconnected with friends from high school through Dota.
That's great.
Michelle, I think, read like 1 million books that she would otherwise wouldn't read.
Yeah.
And it was a sad time to be around, but it was also when we decided to do fine dining.
That's what I'm saying.
That's when Mia fine dining. I think we were sat in our apartment and we were looking at each other, and I was going through the numbers, and I looked at her and I was like, look, we're not gonna come out the other side if we don't change.
Yeah.
You know, and obviously we are so blessed and fortunate to have business partners like Puk and Julin, who, one, they're from the industry. You know, they understand the curveballs that it throws. Secondly, they're super supportive. I mean, I think that they opened Mia for a very different purpose to what Mia serves them.
I mean, I was there for the opening.
Yeah.
seen the whole
When they first opened it,
finish.
you know, I mean,
Start to hear.
Julian wanted something to do. He wanted to be a restaurant owner.
Yeah.
And they had a very different purpose. It was very business oriented. It wasn't about giving back. It was about being efficient in making profits. And then what it is now is literally, I think they're the only business owners I know that in 5 years haven't taken a single baht out, but have put every single baht back
love
into the
that.
business.
Yeah.
In 5 years, that's half a decade, okay?
It's amazing.
Half a decade of a business owner putting everything they make out back into the business
Yeah.
to grow it organically.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. Anyways, look, thank you for opening up about health.
All good, brother.
I think a lot of people, I know that so many other people go through your journey, but not many people share it. And in the same level of honesty that you just have. And I know that when I was in London, I never
a lot
did.
more, but
When I was in London, I had loads of friends and colleagues who were just as how you described. You know, they were abusing a lot of drugs in more ways than recreational. Some of them were even doing it at work. And I looked at them and I always felt like talking about it really helps. You know, being in the same space. I was one of the few people in the kitchens that I've worked in that wasn't broken. I came from.
Right.
I was comfortable with myself already. I was a very confident person already. I knew what I wanted to do. I'm articulate in some ways. You know, I don't have an issue speaking out and speaking to people. I can make friends with the tree.
best wedding speech ever.
I
I'm gonna throw that out there.
can't believe we didn't film that. Yeah, we should. Yeah. But
Sorry, keep going.
no, you like the speech?
It was beautiful.
You know, I don't remember it.
I know it's really
I
good.
fucking don't remember.
was
the speech.
amazing. It was
Everyone keeps saying to me that it was a really good speech. I don't remember it at all.
Phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I would
But,
have paid. I would have paid.
You would have
Paid.
I wish we had filmed that.
It was that good.
Yeah, for some reason we didn't decide to film the wedding in Bangkok, but we did it in Phuket.
It's all good, brother.
So let's talk about another thing that I want to touch in.
Sure.
Women.
Sure.
Women. I've always known, you've said that you've been an overly sensitive guy. And I feel like the macho-ness that male chefs portray is I'm probably the most feminine chef anyone will ever meet. I'm so in touch with my feminine side that Michelle is like the macho person in the relationship.
Awesome. That's awesome.
But I will say that in London, I had a really, really bad breakup as well. And to the point where I quit cooking for 3 months.
Jesus.
Did you know that?
No.
Did you know where I fucking worked for those 3 months?
Starbucks?
I don't think I've ever said this in public. I worked in Abercrombie and Fitch.
Holy shit. Really? I threw Starbucks out as a joke. I mean, that was really?
Yes.
No way, dude.
Yes. So Abercrombie and Fitch at the time was super, this was like what, 2010, 11?
Wow.
So I moved to London.
Yeah.
I was sort of like not seeing a girl.
Yeah.
I won't name her, you know, keep her privacy private.
Sure.
But anyway, it didn't end well. And I was working with her at the restaurant.
Yeah.
And
Jesus.
we were both pretty, and we were both, I was without knowing then, I was severely depressed. I had no life outside of work. I was very unhealthy. I was smoking a cigarette a day. I was like 62 kilos. There's a picture of it.
I've seen that picture. It's
You've seen that
fucking
picture.
crazy, man.
And I was so consumed by the thought of success and succeeding and being the best and working harder than everyone else that I had nothing else to give myself. And I was the unhealthiest I'd ever been. We had opened we opened Gautier Soho, and we got to start within 6 months. I was, I think, 19 at the time. I was on the sauce. So I cooked every single meat and fish that went through that door and did all the sauces. And we got a star within 6 months of opening. And I was super fucking proud. And it was like a box tick for me.
Yeah.
Because one, it was the first time I not only worked in a Michelin star restaurant, but I got. And during the same time, I thought I had found someone. We were working. The story on paper was like super romantic, but oh my god, we were not meant. We were so bad for each other. She was coming out of a very serious relationship, and I was just sick of being alone.
Yeah.
And anyway, it didn't work out.
Yeah.
And I could not face. I resigned because of her.
Jesus.
I resigned because I couldn't work with her. It was. But we had a very close relationship because he has a lot of attachment to the country in Thailand, and I was the first. I wasn't the only Thai chef who's worked under him before. He had another chef called T, who actually had a restaurant here called Table the Tea. Chef T.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So he was a big brother, to me as well. And but anyway, so when I resigned because of the heartbreak, I went to Abercrombie & Fitch store to buy my sister a Christmas present, and one of the staff there they were like, "Oh, what do you do?" They was just curious, and then the girl offered me a job right there on the spot.
That's cool, eh?
And
That's awesome.
at the time, I was like, "This is so fucking weird."
That's great.
I left. I went home for Christmas. Did New Year's Eve. That was my last service at Gautier Soho. Did New Year's Eve. Got completely shit faced.
Good fashion.
Good fashion.
Yeah.
Great way to end my journey there. And
New Year's Eve, that's a great night for a drinking and a last shift.
It was the night out with the team. It was incredible. It was really, really incredible. But I knew that it was, an end of a very important part of my life.
Sure.
So even though I was only at the restaurant for less than a year, I was with the chef Alexis for the first 3 years.
Right.
So Alexis was the chef patron of the hotel as well.
Right.
So
That's
I've been very loyal. I've never worked anywhere less than 2 years.
Yeah.
No restaurant.
Yeah.
I didn't work at many restaurants. I only did like 4 or 5, I think. But everywhere I stayed at least 2 years.
That's awesome.
And every time I resign, I would give 6 months notice.
Yeah,
I'm like the best employee ever.
That's important. I did 5 months on the last one.
Yeah.
Yeah, with 80. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah,
I think
important.
so. How? So yeah. I mean, I just want to talk about that because I know that all chefs go through it.
Oh, for women.
No. But like how, when you break up, and you're a chef, how do people deal with it? What was it for you?
Well, like I said, I went out and got absolutely shittered on a lot more than alcohol.
Yeah.
One.
Was she working with you at the restaurant though?
No, she was my high school sweetheart.
Oh,
we went to prom together, and then we ended up breaking up because we're like different. I ended up moving back to take care of my mom after my dad passed away, which obviously I already told you I did a horrible fucking job with that. The complete opposite, actually. But then we got back together, and but she also worked in the industry, and fantastic woman. So she was working in the industry as well, and it just didn't work out. And she wanted to move back to her home province and go back to school, and we weren't seeing it the eye to eye. But yeah, it took a pretty hard toll on me. It felt all alone again, but again. I had that shitty night at work I had that shitty night, and I had that almost getting fired from work experience the next day, and I actually picked myself up pretty good, and but she's the reason I came to Thailand.
Why?
So she not Thai, but she saw the beach back in the day, Leonardo DiCaprio.
No way. In PP?
So, yeah, in PP. So that So she was always like, I want to go to Thailand, And I was like, she's like, we should go to Thailand. I want to go to the beach. And I was like, what, like Mexico? She's like, no, like the beach in Thailand. Like
Yeah. The beach. There is only one, the beach.
And I was like, okay. And like, I didn't know shit about Bangkok, like, or about Thailand, except like, you know, when you're like a teenager, like, oh, what's the capital of Thailand? And like, Bangkok. And, you know, be punched in the nuts.
As you do. I've had that done to me so many times when I was in the UK.
Sure. And so like, I think after her and I, broke up, I guess just Thailand was always kind of in the back of my head, and she had kind of always talked about taking a trip. I never took it seriously, and I think there was a Thai restaurant on the corner, and I think I had tom yum, and I was like, oh, like lemongrass, like whoa, this is wild, you know. But like I was like, this is like, what's a kaffir lime leaf? And then I go to Granville Island Market, which is like amazing, like this beautiful market in downtown Vancouver, and it's like Pike Place Market. Apparently, I've never actually been, but they said it's like better, and I started to get really into all this stuff and watching like Bourdain, you know, like No Reservations coming to Thailand. And I just got obsessed. And then I ended up being in another relationship. And then about 6 months later, we broke up. And then at that point, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna go to Thailand. I was kind of obsessed at this point, you know what I mean?
The way you describe Thai food is the way that I describe Western food. And it's ironic because Andrew's obviously a European cooking Thai food, specializes in sorry.
A farang.
Oh, very bad of me.
No, I'm
Canadian.
Sabai, bro.
A Caucasian Canadian cooking Thai food. And I'm obviously a brown boy cooking white people food. And your description of the tom yum or what you found wow was what I saw in a French baguette and a burger and buttery mash.
Yeah.
And it's crazy how cultures of our birth, and when you have like the opposite, you know, it's really intriguing.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's exactly it. Yeah, so I came out here and I was completely overwhelmed. I was like, what is this place?
Do you think it was like closure because of your previous relationship that you came to Thailand, or not really?
No, I was just excited. It was just something that was new and exciting.
Did you buy a one-way ticket or was it a return?
And I did a 43-day trip. And I was like, Thailand's really cool. And I was like, I want to do like, so Canada's like very multicultural and very fusion-y. Vancouver restaurants are just fusion, Pacific Northwestern, very Asian influence. I mean, if you go to the BTS in downtown Vancouver, it's like in Mandarin writing as well as English. Even though it's a French-Canadian country, if you go to the rest of the country, it's in French and English and French. And if you go to the Quebec, it's all French. And then if you go to Vancouver, it's in Mandarin and English. That's and like the huge Japantown and everything, and obviously Japanese family. But I was like, I want to do like Asian food. And I worked at this really great Thai restaurant. We're making our own curry paste from scratch. And then I was like, all right, I want to go learn Asian food and come home and open a restaurant. So I did some staging and working around Europe and Japan as well. Had an amazing time. And it was just so like Europe was awesome. You know what I mean? Just fantastic restaurant.
How did you finance yourself to stage?
I didn't have a lot of money, but I saved up like $5,000.
Wow.
And
I wanted to. When I first started, staging had just taken off. It wasn't a thing, you know. It was just the word was just becoming, and I've always dreamed of like, you know, like people stage at Noma and other restaurants around the world, like in America and stuff. And I'm just like doing the math, earning almost minimum wage in London and living in London. I was like, how the fuck, like. I would have to give up cigarettes, and I think at the time it was something that was not willing to give up.
No, for sure. No, I saved up the basic stuff, but then I was like really strategic about like where I would stage. So like friends and chefs would be like, oh, like if you go stage here, they'll do like free housing.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
And then I would be connected. And I was like, oh, sweet, I don't have to worry about paying for rent, you know what I mean? And you get like free staff, you know, so it's like you just got to get there. And then like when I went to Japan, it would just be like, all right, like not going to make a lot of money really, but like, and you know, Japan's super expensive. So I'd have to travel about 50 minutes to and from work. And then I think I was staying in a shared house with 5 other people. So like, it was like $400 a month for a room.
Okay.
And then just working for like minimum wage and struggling, but that's fun, right? Working for minimum wage is fun.
It's not as bad as it sounds.
It's not. You know, you're young and you really just get to enjoy life. You're like, I'm gonna go out and drink beer in front of 7-Eleven.
The one thing I will say is not as bad as it sounds because we have food.
Yes.
And I don't want to take that from people working minimum wage and be like, I can't. And we
no, nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, we shouldn't take that for granted. You know, I mean, if I was working minimum wage and I was living in an office in London, it would be a much, much bigger struggle.
It's a lot nicer when you can take home the leftovers food from work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
you have food. It's like, here, you guys can eat this.
London staff meal was fucking horrific, but
I imagine so.
but okay, so you came to Thailand,
Yeah.
and you know, I mean, I think we'll edit it out a little bit, but I want to revert back to the alcohol,
Yeah.
you know, because we got cut from the coffee.
Sure, go ahead. I've got about 15 minutes, by the way.
That's fine. So when you were saying that you had a pretty you were consumed by alcohol here, what do you mean by that?
I just,
When did it take? Because I didn't realize it when I was in London. I was classified as, now looking back, I was definitely an alcoholic.
oh, I'm an addict.
You're an addict?
I'm an addict for sure. I'm addicted to, I mean, right now I'm addicted to fitness, but I think that's a good addiction to have.
Okay.
And I also know I'm at the point now where sometimes I can tell myself to take a break, to take a step back, like, Andrew, it's too much. I'm an addict, and it's just, again, I won't get into it now. Maybe we can always do a follow-up podcast later.
We will.
Which actually I would love to, because I've got some serious trauma, and again I caused myself a lot of, and I'm really just maybe the past 12 months. There's been some really big highlights in my life, even at this age. I've really understood where all this comes from, and I don't know. I really think if people are actually into this, we should do a separate podcast on it.
We will.
Man, I've had like some really dark journeys.
I think an hour and a half isn't enough.
Yeah,
So.
there's some really bad stuff, like some crazy stuff. I've done some crazy stuff that you put in like a Hollywood movie, you'd be like, wow.
Really?
Oh, dude, like insane, dude, crazy, man. Like I'm crazy. So I've always been an addict, and I've always been running away, and that's why I say the kitchen, I feel like I belong, because there's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. You got to cook. I've spent my whole life running, seriously, running, man. Just a scared little boy. It goes back to what my dad said about going back to women and sensitivity. I remember one time my dad looked at me as being a real piece of shit, and he looked at me, he's like, "You think you're tough?" And he's like, "Try me." My dad was one of the nicest people I knew, but my dad was a tough son of a bitch. And he's just like, "You think you're tough?" And I looked at him, I was like, "Oh, you little bitch." That's what I thought to myself. I was like, he called me. And but I've been running. And recently, ever since I started my health journey, that's when I was like, I'm going to face my problems, and I've become tough. I'm starting to become tough 30 years later, 32 years later.
Tough in what sense? What do you...
Tough, like I'm starting to face my problems like a man. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. I'm going to be accountable. I'm accountable to the fact that I've been a real fuck up and I've made a lot of mistakes. I'm going to quit drinking. I'm going to quit smoking. This has been going on for 20 years. It's like, oh, I quit doing drugs. Well, now you're drinking more. So I quit doing drugs. And then I come out here and I went through some personal stuff originally with like the first 80-20, which broke my heart on the first version when I had left originally before I went back. And other things in life. It's not just singular. There's so many stuff going on. So I'm like, well, no, I'm not going to do this. Like, oh, well, drinking's not that bad. Well, it's pretty freaking bad when you're drinking 7 nights a week and you're drinking minimum 6 beers a night and you're going on and drinking and feel sorry for yourself and not taking care of yourself. And that's what happened. And I was running away, and I'm just drinking to hide the pain. And then the pain that I'm going through in that moment is directly in correlation to the pain that I've been experiencing for my entire life since as far back as I can remember. And it's drink. And then I started to say, enough. And that's when I started to get. So basically, like I said, and I think but that's part of being a cook. I mean, so many cooks I meet, there's all these wild stories, and everybody has these crazy backgrounds and done these crazy things. Like anybody else, like every single person in this world, from the best family, from the slums to the biggest house, we all have our own personal demons. And
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not about my life is harder than anybody else's.
No, it's not a comment. And this is it's and it was one thing that I struggled with a lot, because when I was viewing other people's lives, when I was a young, naive, I always made comparisons.
Exactly.
Because I came from a very, very humble background,
Yeah.
and in some ways I was judgmental for those who didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I grew up finally and broadened my horizon, I realized that some of my friends come from the wealthiest families, and they're really not in a happy, fulfilled place. And then I look at when I was growing up as a teenager, I was like, wow, they have everything.
Yep.
And now as an adult, I'm like, holy shit, they must be so unfulfilled.
100%.
And I'm like, what would I rather have? all the materialistic shit in the world or where I am now. Like, you know, like a calm mind, a healthy body, and purpose, you have to earn it. You can't buy that shit.
And that's what you earn. The other stuff's a bonus.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that, like, actually, like, I've had a really hard, dark life, but actually, like, not because I come from a bad family. Like I said, like, my dad came from a small town. My mom did too, but like, my dad was actually like very successful. My dad was a lawyer, actually. He was a tax lawyer, and but again, he left home at 13, and then he was, again, my dad was like a beast, you know, so, but like just like gentle baby face, one of the nicest people I ever met. Loved him. Jimmy Buffett, small town country boy, water skiing, you know, but you know, he's super talented at hockey. So he left home to go play hockey and go through school and like garden families to leave the small town. And he was in the NHL or not, but he's in the Canadian Hockey League before it was like really big. And the money he made from that, he put himself through law school. And married my mom. Couldn't have kids. They adopted me. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad was a rather successful lawyer. We're not talking like LA lawyer with like and Ferraris and Bentleys or anything, but very, very, very good childhood, very comfortable. You know, he was the kind of guy who's like anything we wanted, if he could afford it, he'd give it to us. But you know, all that being said, and it's what you just said, like we had all that material stuff, but I mean, not material stuff, but like my dad's like material stuff is like we had like a nice house, but you know, we'd have season passes to go snowboarding at the ski hills. You know, we'd have new skates to play hockey, hiking shoes, running shoes, like an outdoor Canadian lifestyle, small town dude. We had a little cabin, nothing crazy. My dad liked the little small town cabins. So originally when we bought it, we had like an outdoor shitter, like an outhouse, you know, and it was just a small little place, but like, it was great. You know, we were 5 years old. He'd buy us like pellet guns to run around the neighborhood and shit. You know what I mean? But you know, after all that, I had my own personal demons, which I would love to discuss another time, which I still do. But
we will. We have to. I think we.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, for me, you know, I mean, how's it been from you speaking it out? Like, is this the first time you've openly?
Oh, for sure. I love it, actually. Thank you. Like
Has it been therapeutic?
I never talk about my dad. I love him. He was the greatest person ever. It's been very therapeutic. I'm always like scared, but he's just such a good guy. And
yeah, I've known you for 7 years. You've never once spoken about your dad.
No,
it has always been come and gone, very by and
one of just the greatest dudes. And I actually love that I'm like here talking about him with you as a friend, not because we're doing this. It's just a friend thing. He has influenced my life so much because all the stories he taught me, all the lessons he taught me, even though he passed away when I was 18. All that, 19 actually, all that, I totally disregarded as a kid. I was so ignorant, but I always knew he was right. But I was like, I don't care. I'm too strong. Like, you know, just a little punk. Just a little punk, you know. I was tough in the sense of pain. I could take pain, but I was an emotional wreck. And then it was only when I really started to get healthy, 6, 7 years ago, that, man, you know, everything he taught me sticks in here.
And it comes back.
And it's there.
Bright signboard letters.
And that goes back to you talking about giving it 100%. And my dad always said to me, he's like, no matter what you do in this life, he's like, no matter how much you fuck up, he's like, if you give it 100%, and he's like, if you believe that what you did was the right thing, you can go home and look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day. And I think now, and that goes back into what's happened the past 12 months, this is the first time I can go home and look myself in the mirror and like be like, fucking A, Drew, you know, especially with the food at 80/20 the last time I left too. And my journey as a professional person, but as a personal person, yeah, the past few years, I'm like, I know exactly who I am.
I must say, from an outsider looking in, and I think this is where we'll end the podcast today, you know, you underestimate how much you have inspired people within the industry. And I know that I'm one of many, and not through the traditional, and this is what I want this podcast to be. I want this podcast to dig deeper than the chefs, because a chef is like 10%, it's what we do.
Yeah.
But there is literally a human being who happens to be a chef. And this is what I want to unearth this. And this podcast today has nothing but amplified the reason why I want to do it. I want it to be a platform for chefs to be able to disconnect and reconnect with what made them who they are. And Andrew, the only thing I'm going to say to you, man, is like, you underestimate the inspiration you have left behind for people, because I was one of them. To not only like like, I hate the word success because you can't define that,
Yeah.
but to go through the journey that you have, to have the heartbreaks that you've had, whether it's personal, professional, whatever it is, and we'll touch on that probably next time, and then to almost without being dramatic go to the brick of death and
Yeah.
come back with a massive smile on your face, with some new running shoes and a new addiction for the gym. You have inspired more than you can imagine. You've given them hope that if you can do it, so can others. If you've given me hope, when I
love it, bro. I think that's what it's all
and
about.
and
Good energy.
this, it's such a positive thing. It's honestly, it's such an inspiring an hour and a half that you've given me, and your time. I know that it's all of us, in such a valuable asset that we and look, I cannot thank you enough for coming on today and sharing.
I can't thank you enough for having me, bro. It's an hour and a half very well spent. I had
And
a
I
great
hope
time.
and I could feel that it's been very therapeutic for you
It has
as
been.
well. And to thank you so much for sharing your story. And I'm sure we'll have you back on sooner than later.
I hope so, bro. It's a
You
great.
will.
I always-
We'll do it, man.
It doesn't matter if we're talking or cooking or whatever, man. I'm always
Yeah,
happy
for sure.
to hang out, bro. It's
All right, dude.
fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Thank you.